The 2025 NFL Combine has come and gone. Who were the biggest winners and losers that shook up our Dynasty rookie rankings? All this and more. It's a new episode of the IBT podcast coming right at you.
I've been going dummy, out of bounds, putting on a clinic. Stick around, carrots in my hardware. KC, caught him in the crosshair. Look at me, been the guy calling Mr. MVP. Keep your ass on the bench by my MPC. Earn my stripes like I fix this league. Your dog's on the turf, my dog's in the street. You can find me somewhere in between. Never a dull moment like a movie scene. About to do the ops like I did this beat. Let them keep talking RG3. Coming to you live. This is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is Wednesday, March 4th, 2025, and this is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your place for both a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy football and NFL gambling. It's a big time in the league calendar as we gear up for free agency. Some moves already happening around the league that we'll certainly chat all about tonight. We're also coming off a huge NFL Combine weekend where we hit a 42-1 gainer on Matthew Golden. We'll discuss him alongside some other Combine winners and losers and how they affect our Dynasty rookie rankings. I'm your host, Seth Wilcock, tonight. I'm joined by a man who's a big business, light ranching son of a bitch, someone who tried to tell me last week, hey, let's fix this unit allocation a little bit and make a little more coin. Knower of all, I should say as well. Eric Romoff. What's up, dude?
Man, knower of all. These are big shoes to fill. I'm feeling good. I was also banging the golden drum on these airways last week, so I always love when a long shot comes home. And now we're on the other side of it.
Squad ride hit. Let's go.
We were all out here saying, what can this guy do to their draft stock if they perform well or perform poorly? Last week and the weeks leading up to it were all about speculation. Now we have another data point, right? We've got a little bit more information that should inform how these off seasons will play out. We get a little bit clearer picture.
Absolutely happy for you to be riding shotgun with us once again, Eric. We're also joined by a man who I recently learned should probably test at the Combine for speed reading, our entertainment and NFL betting expert here at IBT, Boston's boy, Steve Lawson. Steve, how's it going, man?
It's going good. I had a frustrating weekend, I would say, with the Combine not going the way that I wanted a lot of guys to go, and the Oscars pissing me off in a whole bunch of new ways. It was an interesting weekend, but I got to watch Cynthia Erivo defy gravity, and just that has made my whole life better. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, man. Glad you're still riding with us as well, and it's okay. I don't want to say I told you so about Isaiah Bond, but I didn't only tell you. I told the entire internet multiple times. Let's chill out on this guy. He was a little banged up, but that's a conversation for last week's pod, and we'll also talk a little Isaiah Bond tonight as well. We're also joined by the man who moves the needle for this particular program, Ginger. Former IUP Crimson Hawk, behind-the-scenes producer Kyle Scott. Jim, welcome in. And despite what that damn groundhog said last month, spring is in the air out here in the great state of Pennsylvania. How you doing out there in the Berg?
I'm doing fantastic. Spring is in the air. I think someone out there in Punxsutawney might have just ran over that fucking groundhog.
Why is Punxsutawney Phil catching strays right now? It's been almost 6 weeks since he said 6 more weeks of winter.
No,
that groundhog was damn near.
It's been 4, Steve.
It's been like 4.5. Like, I mean, this groundhog. Do you know he's batting like I think he's something like right 58% of the time.
I mean, dude, anyone could be right.
It's not bad.
At a time, it's a 50-50 proposition, right?
And he's 58%. He's better. This is Farmer's Almanac stuff. The Amish wish they were as accurate as Punxsutawney Phil.
It's either going to be an early spring or it's not going to be an early spring, Eric. You don't have 3 outcomes here. It's either right or you're wrong.
You've got a multitude of outcomes. Is an early spring definitively 6 weeks? Is it 4 weeks? Is it 4.5 weeks? Right.
He's throwing a line on it.
It's a spectrum here. All right.
He's not
and
putting
to be accurate
48%
of the time on a spectrum is a great outcome. Shout out to Punxsutawney Phil.
Punxsutawney Phil gets all love on this show.
I thought you guys would be with me on this one, but we're wrong again. But Kyle, I appreciate Kyle's from Pennsylvania. He gets the frustration with
I
Punxsutawney
feel like there's
Phil.
some Keystone State hate towards Punxsutawney Phil. Maybe it's overexposure.
Yeah,
That
maybe. Yeah.
that groundhog's a legend.
I'll tell you what, though, we definitely should have made a trip up to Gobbler's Knob up there in Punxsutawney. Kyle and I only
That
went
can't
to.
possibly be the fucking name of where that is.
No, that's the spot in Punxsutawney, Gobbler's Knob. Yeah, and but Kyle and I went to school only about 45 minutes from there. We never made the trip up, so shame on us for that one for sure. I did also want to shout out the IBT family. As always, please like this video if you enjoy this type of content. Us rambling on about NFL betting and fantasy football happenings and Punxsutawney Phil along the way. Also, please subscribe if you're new. It's the easiest way to support us. And be sure to check out the website for some fantastic written content. And while you're there, get a ticket to Draft Night Out. That's our live fantasy football draft at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio this August. If you want to come draft with us, plus 200 of our closest fantasy football friends, this is the event for you. We got the shot wheel spinning. We got giveaways going off, everything in between. So make sure you guys are checking that out. We also have a link in the episode description. Draft Night Out 2025, Eric. Could I say the best, the biggest yet? It's definitely going to be the biggest yet. I think it's going to be the best yet too.
Yeah, I mean those really go hand in hand, right? Like, this is now another year of operating and running DNO under our belt. So we're getting more and more refined about the type of experience that we're trying to put out there. But a big part of that experience are the vibes, the energy, the palpable buzz in the room, right? So as we get bigger, this thing is only going to get more and more exciting.
Yeah, it's always a good time. I'm excited to have Kyle there for the first time, Steve there for the first time this summer as well. So it's going to be a magical time. Come have fun with us, guys. We appreciate it. Let's go ahead, though. Let's jump into some front and center. We do have some fantasy football news to update y'all on before we get into our combine winners and losers.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between. How about you come to the place, try to have some fun. Ain't gotta worry about knowing not what it means. Come and give me another, cause the night is young. At least I so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and center.
All right, it's front and center. We're breaking down some recent NFL news and how it translates to fantasy football and NFL gambling markets. Wide receiver Deebo Samuel reunites with GM Adam Peters in Washington. Traded for just a 5th-round pick, and this coming from the Athletics' Ben Standig. Good addition. One general manager texted me, Deebo still has something left in the tank, and Cliff will use him right. Eric, how does this shake out for the Commanders for fantasy football? Whose value changes? And do you agree with this anonymous GM that Cliff Kingsbury is the guy to re-unlock Deebo Samuel?
Yeah, I like the marriage between Deebo Samuel and Cliff Kingsbury more than I care about any past connection to Adam Peters, right? That's probably why the deal got done, just because there's that familiarity there. But ultimately, I feel like this is pretty close to a slam dunk type of fit here for the Commanders, right? We obviously saw last year what Terry McLaurin can be in the NFL when he is unlocked and has not only competent quarterback play, borderline MVP caliber quarterback play,
elite shit,
right? And then you add on top of that, an offensive mind like Cliff Kingsbury, who's not afraid to push the pace, not afraid to push the ball down the field. We checked a lot of boxes with the 2024 version of the Commanders passing game, and now you add in a guy like Deebo who can really operate all over the field. He can answer a very big slot question for them. A guy that can take a short pass and generate a ton of yards after catch on it. I think he was 12th in yards after catch per reception last year, right? So he's just a really nice fit in terms of where they had holes. He's a really nice fit in terms of what they're trying to do in this scheme. He can potentially bolster a pretty lackluster ground game for them as well, right? So look, you get these, kind of joker wild card type of players, and they can fill in a lot of different ways, and he can be that piece that gets the Commanders over the hump in this year's deep playoff run.
I mean, this was a team that down the stretch they were using Zacchaeus in multiple ways. Zacchaeus, a nice little player, a little bit better than a Jag, I would say, but also we're betting on Dyami Brown down the stretch there in the divisional round playoffs. Steve, you and I know had multiple units down on Dyami Brown, and he came to play. And the crazy thing about this dude is Dyami's a unrestricted free agent. Noah Brown, UFA. Zacchaeus, UFA. Zach Ertz, a UFA. So a lot of shifting here in Washington. Where do you think you'll be drafting Deebo Samuel, if at all, next year, Steve? Are you thinking probably somewhere in that 6th, 7th round range? Is that where you'd be comfortable at?
That might be a little rich for my blood, the 6th or 7th round, but I wouldn't mind push that back a few, 8, 9, I guess I could get behind it. I don't know how much Deebo has left in the tank. I know he had a really bad case of pneumonia last year. They were talking, this man was hospitalized. There was a lot of stuff going on with Deebo that, I think may have contributed to his premature downfall. So I think, the whole him being washed thing, I think might be a year or two early. I hope we get to see him used a little less as a pure wide receiver and a little bit more as a third down back / slot guy. A little bit of a hybrid role, I think, would really suit Deebo at this point in his career, and serve a need that the Commanders have really, really bad, is that they need a running back that can do something. At this point, I would go and try to bolster the running back position for them, and then kind of use Deebo as the lightning to someone's thunder, and do something like that. But I think Deebo could really thrive in a Kingsbury offense, but certainly not, and I don't know it enough to be able to slap a 6th round pick on him.
I think nobody can get manufactured touches in someone's hand like Cliff Kingsbury. So I'm really excited for what Deebo could potentially do here. I think they will probably add a running back. I mean, there's really, a dozen plus guys who could be NFL starters, a lot of guys who could be number 2s here in this league coming in the 2025 class. So, and it just feels I'm not trying to poo-poo Brian Robinson at all. Steve, I don't think you're giving enough credit, but at the same time, definitely falls off down the stretch. It feels right. Definitely felt like Jane Daniels had to kind of wear that Superman cape a little bit. On the other side of the coin here, Eric, how do you think this shakes out for the San Francisco 49ers? Is it wheels up for both Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall as kind of mid to 8th, 9th round flyers potentially?
I'll take a similar stance to Steve in terms of, how to feel about these guys relative to draft capital. I think they're both going a little bit later than that in underdog drafts, which obviously isn't a 1-to-1 comp.
Sure.
The thing to really note here is the noted omission. You made no mention of Brandon Ayuk, who's currently still on the roster. And I think what happens to him, as there are trade rumors swirling right now,
might be heading out to the Berg, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, he could be heading to a number of places, but if he's out the door, then very clearly it is going to be wheels up for Jennings, for Rolex Ricky, and for probably another rookie that they go out and draft, right? And these are the ramifications, right? You have
what if
a
Ayuk
window
stays?
when you're. I think if Ayuk stays, he is a premium option, right? I think that we're going to see Brock Purdy return to shades of the 2023 version that we saw of him out there, and there's going to be less target competition from a guy like Deebo Samuel, right? So, Jennings will take an incremental step forward. We'll get a good chance to see what Ricky Pearsall can be, with a full workload and a full season. But I think we're going to see pretty similar floor out of Brandon Ayuk if he remains in San Francisco, and an incrementally higher ceiling, which will make him interesting in best ball formats and season-long formats.
Someone's got to step up there as a leader, so I'm kind of excited to see who.
Someone does. It'll be George Kittle. I think we're forgetting that man exists right now.
Would you, Steve, if you had to not in where you would be taking them ADP, but in priority on your list, who would you be targeting? Kittle. I've been seeing McCaffrey. I mean, his ADP. I have a little bit of McCaffrey.
I'm worried.
Shares
I'm worried
now.
about McCaffrey.
End of second round. I've been getting him on some best balls. I can't.
That could be good. Achilles injuries scare me because it's not like it's just hard to predict. It's hard to predict what that's going to do to his health, how long he's going to be able to keep that from being an issue. Is his speed affected? Blah, 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 right? I don't know.
So Kittle's the guy then. So
Kittle's the guy because he'll cost less than McCaffrey because McCaffrey's still going at a spot where if you miss, your season might be ruined.
Eric, if you had to rank the 1, 2, 3, 4 priorities in your draft list, San Francisco skill players, where are you going? 5 actually, 1 through 5. Ayuk, assuming Ayuk's there.
Assuming Ayuk's there, I mean, right now Brandon Ayuk has got a ADP that's later than Deebo Samuel, than Juwan Jennings, even, right? So, anytime we're talking about these large pools, I tend to go with whoever is the cheapest.
Yeah.
In a vacuum, I probably would lean towards Kittle, but he kind of falls into a point in the draft where even though he's cheaper, I don't know if I really want to be taking tight ends around that point, right?
Agreed.
So for me, what I'll say is I'm happy to take CMC at where he's currently being drafted. I think we're getting a sufficient discount on him.
That'll get steamed up by August, but yeah.
I don't know if he will. I really don't know if he will. I think anytime you see a number 1 overall pick just piss down their leg like this, people remember that. And they really hold it against them next year. And then he has legitimate question marks, right? Like this isn't just the fantasy market being in their feels and saying, forget that guy, right? Like another year older, a bunch of miles on those wheels.
You're gambling.
Coming off those injuries, right? So I think he's hovering around a point where I'd probably have some interest in him. Kittle might fall in that dead zone. Honestly, I think who I'd be most excited about among the receivers is probably Ricky Pearsall, because he's the mystery box, right? We'll probably get the best price tag on him. He can
even be a boat.
I mean, he was hand drafted. He was hand selected to be the heir apparent to Brandon Ayuk, and he's got a lot of similar skill sets there. So, whether it's a gradual, changing of the guard or Ayuk is out of town, I think there's a lot of upside to Pearsall, especially with where he's being drafted right now.
Moving forward, the New York Jets today, they cut Davante Adams. This is after trading a 3rd-round pick for him in October. A lot of talk on the internet that, likely following Aaron Rodgers to wherever he goes or potentially return to the West Coast in some fashion. Steve, if you are the odds makers, if you're the books, who should be the betting favorite to acquire the 3-time All-Pro services?
Ooh, that's a tough one because, let's, we want to talk about goblin knobs, and that's what people have been doing for Aaron Rodgers, like force feeding Davante Adams to wherever he's going lately. For me, right, like if I'm the odds maker, I would probably put someone like the Rams or the Chargers as the primary landing spot. I think it's all well and good to be like, we're a package deal. That's not how the NFL fucking works, dude.
Green Bay, go back to LaFleur.
I don't think so. I think Green Bay wants someone younger
they need a one, brother.
I don't know if Davante Adams is still a one.
Davante Adams is still a one, brother.
I think at this point, here's why I would say no to Green Bay. Davante Adams still wants wide receiver 1 money, and he's not going to want it for 1 year. He's going to want multiple years committed to him.
Yeah.
So you need to go somewhere with the cap space to do that.
Yeah, Green Bay doesn't have that. You're right.
Reuniting with Vegas could happen. I wouldn't be shocked at something like that happening. The Chargers have cap space. The Rams are going to try to figure out some cap space. He could be a good number 2 to Puka Nacua. But I don't think this idea of like him and Rodgers being a package deal is going to help anybody.
Sure.
So I would say I would put odds favorite for LA, and then I guess the Giants would be a 3rd. So both LA teams and then the New York Giants, and then the Raiders after that.
Eric, 2 thoughts for you. First, should we be potentially in the market on eBay right now for some Davante Adams Raiders autographed merchandise? Because I feel like if he returns, the value is going. Like, I feel like that's a little bit of a stock play. I know you're kind of out there in that crypto world. What do you think? Do you think maybe a little play out on eBay here for some Davante Adams Raiders gear, hoping the stock raises again?
Yeah, I don't know how deep I am in the crypto world per se, but I do think that's an astute point, right? More so what I'm hearing is a lot of comps to like the collectibles world, and specifically like the card world, right? The hobby, if you will. A lot of times people are going out there and they're chasing players that, had a slow rookie season or whatever it might be,
Okay.
hoping that they come back around. So, if we're talking about a scenario where I think Max Crosby was out there trying to welcome both Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers to the Raiders this coming off season. I mean, there's probably a bit of money to be made, and honestly, like I think it could be a pretty electric pairing. We obviously know what Brock Bowers can do. A-Rod showed he's got a little bit left in the tank down the stretch run, and Davante Adams from week 9 on was wide receiver 3.
Giddy
right,
up.
like he was
Giddy
out
up.
there posting some numbers.
That's
so
what I'm saying, dude.
I think look, we've long speculated on this very program with the hiring of Pete Carroll and what it signals. Like the Raiders think that they're stepping into a win now window, and this would be maybe not an effective win now move, but it would be a win now intended move.
I am saying this with 1,000% honesty. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. As a quarterback, for my franchise, I would rather Tom Brady come out of retirement today
Brother.
than have Aaron Rodgers. I am not even kidding. That was ugly last season. And like, yeah, all right.
Dude, he put it together down the stretch.
No, he didn't. It was a force feeding to Davante Adams. That offense looked abysmal. Every player that wasn't named Davante Adams turned into a fucking pumpkin because Aaron Rodgers could not figure out that offense. Aaron Rodgers will kill your team. He will kill your franchise. He will force you to make moves you don't want to make. He has put the Jets in a position that is so unbelievably bad for the next coming seasons. That's 1,000%. It is on Woody Johnson, but it's on Aaron Rodgers too. And people keep wanting to be like, well, he didn't force him. It's like, yes, he did. He was their franchise guy.
Did.
He is 40 years old. That man is 1,000 in NFL terms, and he is not Tom Brady. He did not look good at 40 years old. He looked really bad. And the only reason we're not crucifying him more is because Kirk Cousins looked so unbelievably awful in Atlanta that he was the worst offseason signing of anybody.
Yeah.
So Aaron Rodgers made that offense worse. Zach Wilson was a better under center quarterback than Aaron Rodgers.
So you like Garrett? So you're saying you're in on Garrett Wilson in 2025, despite the quarter. Like if it's a rookie, you're in on Garrett.
Absolutely.
I'll say that I'm also get back in on Garrett Wilson. I think too. Just
I was never out. Before Davante Adams got there, he was a monster. Even with Davante Adams there, he was a monster. Every time the Jets offense looked competent, it was because Garrett Wilson was getting his targets.
Never finished worse than wide receiver 26 in 3 seasons as well. I mean, he's played with some turds at quarterback. So
I was gonna say with some horrendous quarterback play supporting him.
I'm back, baby. I'm back in the Garrett Wilson camp. Sign me up. I got my ticket right here. I didn't have a lot of Garrett Wilson exposure last year because he's a little expensive, but yeah. We got Albert here in the chat saying, good evening, IBT.
Albert.
What's up, Albert? Good to see you, brother. Hope you're having a great Tuesday evening here. Thanks for hanging out on the IBT podcast as always, brother. Last thing of note here before we jump into our Rave rookie reviews for the Combine. Saquon Barkley, he's becoming the highest paid running back in NFL history. Congrats to Saquon, Pennsylvania native. Glad he could return here to the great Keystone State and just tear it up with the Eagles this past year, man. And if anyone deserves, an early extension, it is Saquon Barkley. Eric, my question for you is, where is he in your Dynasty running back rankings? For me, I got Gibbs ahead of him. I got Genty ahead of him and Bijan right with him in that same tier, but behind him. Where are you at here on Mr. Saquon Barkley?
I am lower than consensus. I don't even know what consensus necessarily is.
Consensus is 4. Consensus is 4.
Oh, great. Then I am absolutely lower than consensus. I'd have him at I've got him at 7 right now. I might move him further back, honestly, depending on where some of these rookies land. If for no other reason, I am an unabashed ageist when it comes to Dynasty.
Yeah,
this man is 28 years old at the running back position. He is coming off of a prolific season, right?
He's got 4 left. He's got 4 left in him, I think.
He's got 4 seasons left. I'll take the under on 4 more seasons of running back 1 production.
RB1 production. That's different. Yeah, that's different.
What exactly did you mean when you said he's got 4? He'll play 4 more seasons? Probably, right? My point is there is never been, I'll be hyperbolic, there has never been a more clear sell position for a running back in the dynasty format than there is Saquon Barkley right now, because he had, as a 27-year-old, a lot of these same ageist-based questions heading into this circumstance with Philadelphia, and it worked out perfectly for him, right? So people are going to say, the running back is back, baby. Look at all the guys who got paid. They all went nuts. Look at this incoming class. The NFL is investing in running backs again. And then Father Time is inevitably going to catch up to all of them. And if you move Saquon Barkley now, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but in the long term, you will be far better off for having sold high on Saquon Barkley. I think we probably have another top 10, probably top 5 season in front of him this year, maybe top 10 next year. And then after that, it's going to be dicey. He's going to be RB2 territory and very hard to move.
Steve, right now, if you could have Saquon Barkley in a dynasty league, or if you could have Bijan, Gibbs, or Genty, would you take any of that lot, or would you take Saquon?
I play Dynasty in a weird way, I guess is how I'll say this. I look 3 years. That is my outlook. I don't go much further than that. So Saquon Barkley is my Dynasty RB1 at the moment.
Wow.
Because for 3 years, there's nobody I want instead of Saquon Barkley. I like other guys. I can look to the future and see where it happens, but the NFL's changed, dude. Like 30 used to be the cutoff. Now it's kind of like 32 is where you get old. So that's buying you 4 years of Saquon Barkley, because everyone told me and everyone under the sun thought Derrick Henry was done 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It was kind of like, oh, the wheels will fall off, and they just aren't falling off. So there's no reason for me to, like, at 28 years old, and maybe this is me being 31 and wondering, like, I don't feel less athletic now than I did at 20. So now I'm not an elite athlete by any means, but I'm a pretty decently athletic human being, nowhere near comparable to Saquon Barkley, right? But the problem you run into with a Saquon Barkley is when you lose a step, you kind of lose your whole thing. But I could see 4 years of Saquon holding on to being an elite athlete and him putting up RB1 numbers for the next 4 years. So to me, I would rather, there's no rookie I'd rather have over Saquon. Jahmyr Gibbs will go right back into a timeshare.
I'll take Gibbs. I'll take Gibbs and depending on the
I think we're buying Gibbs. Here's why I'm not in on Gibbs over Saquon, right? I'm in on Gibbs as like the RB2, but he lives in a timeshare, and Dan Campbell wants to stick with
I'm
that.
all right with that. I'm
not for my RB1, like the RB1.
He's still
it's Saquon or bust in Philly. So for me,
it's true. It's
not
true.
only is Saquon efficient like Gibbs, but he gets more opportunity. To me, that's a home run. Saquon Barkley is your dynasty RB1. Don't get cute with it.
Eric, end this conversation. Just need the player's name. Who's your dynasty RB1 currently? Is it Gibbs?
It's Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Well, we're all over the fucking place, so that doesn't help anyone. But let us know down below in the comments. Let us know who your overall dynasty
I think Steve's
RB1
point persists about Gibbs being in a timeshare for the foreseeable future. That is how I will split that difference between those two.
All right, fair enough. Let us know down in the comments or the live chat. I want to hear from you guys. And let's go ahead, though. Let's shift gears and jump into some NFL Combine discussion in Rave rookie reviews. It's Rave. What were you going to say?
That's some straight ass rave music. Y'all need to. Is that what y'all are at the club? Like, is that what's going on in your guys' clubs? Like, that's.
No, I'm going to country clubs, brother. Don't you worry. Don't you worry about
dancing?
This is Rave rookie reviews, guys. We're going to be reviewing the NFL Combine, talking about our biggest winners and losers in our dynasty rookie rankings for the 2025 class. the combine's always a great event. It's kind of just another piece of the puzzle. We don't want to overreact to. We don't want to double count stats, but at the same time, we also don't want to underreact. So let's go ahead and jump in here. We're going to go position by position. We have a couple for each of the positions that we did see test, starting at the quarterback position with my losers, Jalen Milroe, guys, quarterback out of Alabama. First, there's the whole like hand size situation that's just kind of thrown the internet for a little bit of a loop here. 8 3/4 at the Senior Bowl, comes back 9 3/8 at the Combine. There is, the whole conspiracy that you can somehow cheat this whole hand size evaluation. Either way, I'm glad that it's over 9 because it's when it's 9 or under that you really get in trouble is what it seems like. And then there's like the fact that like Jalen Milroe didn't do anything at the Combine but throw, and that is like so mind baffling to me because throwing is the worst part of his game. A sub 4.4 time, which what he was projected to run, that would have raised eyebrows of the fantasy football community, of the NFL scouting community. And I thought he would have jumped out of the gym as well, like we saw Anthony Richardson do a couple years ago. So I think there was a chance that he could have really steamed himself back up boards here, potentially put himself into the first round conversation. Instead, I think he just let sleeping dogs lie. And I think Milroe at this point falls out of the top 2 rounds. What do you think, Eric?
It's hard to say. I think one of the takeaways coming out of the Combine this year is that there is a bit of a mess, a bit of a cluster in that sort of second tier of quarterbacks, second and third tier, even kind of gray together. So it's hard to tell where he'll fall. If I had to guess, probably falls a little bit later. I think he's like late second into the third round, in so much as I think the market just kind of drags that way. But yeah, look, for me, Jalen Milroe had arguably the biggest stakes out of any player heading into the Combine this last week, and he didn't stand up and grab this opportunity, right? Like he has questions about his game, and they are earned. They are legitimate questions. But to your point on Anthony Richardson, no, they're not the same player in terms of their athletic profile and their ability. But where they are the same is if Milroe came in and smashed every single athletic event relative to his peers, it would have had a very positive impact on his draft stock, and he opted out of it, right? So like, the limited amount of work that he did is kind of being spliced and diced, right? Some people are cutting low light reels of him just sailing it over open receivers on some of the drills. Other people are talking about how big his arm are. It's basically exactly what you saw when he was playing for Alabama, right? So like, he didn't advance his position because of the Combine, and I have to agree, he's a huge loser because he was in a position to do that, and he didn't take the opportunity.
Yeah, he's down my rankings for sure, man. Like he was already, but I moved him below Jackson Dart, and now at this point, like I think he still probably stays at QB4 because there's nothing really below him that's appetizing at all either. But there's so many more positional players that I'd rather gamble with, especially in like if I'm doing any of these D-Gen before the NFL draft type rookie drafts, I'd rather gamble with and take Milroe where I was earlier in the process. So that's on me. Speaking of on someone here, Steve, you were really high on Ollie Gordon coming into the process, running back out of Oklahoma State, 2023 Doak Walker Award winner, a guy who regressed by nearly 900 yards this past season. And it was really tough because it was like, it's the worst Oklahoma State team we've seen in the Mike Gundy era. So I wanted to chalk a lot of that up to that. And the tape didn't look good, but you look back to that 2023 season, it was great. And he doesn't show up here at the Combine just with a pretty mild performance. So your thoughts here on Ollie Gordon moving forward?
Yeah, so this is a tough one for me because I kind of have to like swallow my pride a little bit because I am a big Ollie Gordon guy, right? I've been very vocal about my support for Ollie. But on this program many, many times, I have said the 40-yard dash is the most important is most important to the running back position to me. Because if you run a 4.6, that is a kiss of death for me for a running back, because that means you can't get away from the second level which means you can't outrun the linebackers. And Ollie Gordon ran that dreaded 4.640. Now, I would love it if he came out and said he had a tweaked ankle, maybe a foot injury, a hamstring injury, something, anything to maybe be able to explain this away. I do think he's a skilled runner. I do. The problem is that lack of explosive speed, unless he lands in a LA Rams kind of situation where Kyron Williams did, right, and gets just force-fed opportunity, he's not going to put up explosive numbers, I don't think, because he doesn't have that explosive range. Now, his Ross score was an 8.1, which is good. The problem is that it's off the back of his size composite, right? He's a big running back. And all of those scored as elite, where everything else kind of just scored as meh. So his explosiveness and his cutting ability just is fine. He can jump really high. He has a good broad jump, but his splits as a runner and his 40-yard dash and his cone drills were not good.
I mean,
so he's not shifty and he's not fast. So what does that make you? Like, listen, you're a running back. I don't give a shit how high you can jump, and I really don't care how tall you are. That doesn't excite me. I need to know, can you cut? Can you make moves? And can you break away speed? And Ollie Gordon didn't show that he could. So for me, where I had him as my RB2 in this class, he is falling significantly in my rankings going forward.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the 10-yard split, sometimes that can be the savior for someone who has a slower 40, and he's still, in that 52 percentile for that as well. So it just wasn't a great look for Ollie Gordon. Like, I think if he knew he was going to run that slow, like, I would say, why run at all, right? Like, why hurt your stock?
His pro day, I think his pro day of all the running backs is the most important going forward.
We'll see if he can, improve this, but yeah, Ollie Gordon, someone who, to me, Eric, he's always just been a guy, especially here in 2024, that felt like he tried to almost like juke his way out of every situation. And he's like more like built like a power back, right? So it just, I don't know. Like, and now he doesn't have the speed too. So it just feels like you can't put 2 and 2 together. And this has like Isaiah Spiller kind of written all over it.
I don't know if it's got Isaiah Spiller written all over it. I think, and granted, we're talking about ranges of outcomes. I think he could be a little bit closer to like a David Montgomery in this league. You mentioned
that's the ceiling, brother.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Could be. I didn't say he's guaranteed to be David Montgomery by any means. But you mentioned in 2024, a lot of what he was trying to do was juke his way out of tackles and to, seemingly, or at least it gets assigned as being look for the big play. It's the other direction, brother. 1.8 yards before contact in 2024, almost 4 yards, over 4 yards before contact in 2023. He was juking his way out of defenders because they were meeting him in the backfield, right? Like, obviously a lot has to go right, but he gets himself into a capable offense with like an average NFL line. And I think there's still some juice to his game, right? Like Steve mentioned, we'll see what he does at his pro day. He can potentially improve his stock there. But honestly, biggest winner of the entire combine is me personally, with everyone out there saying that Ollie Gordon is the biggest loser, because I will happily expose myself to him in the 3rd and 4th round when everyone's sleeping on him, because he's got the skill set, he's got the size and the ability to be an explosive player in this league in the right set of circumstances. And I'm happy to scratch that lottery card in the 3rd or 4th round of rookie drafts. And that's probably where he's going to go based on how underwhelming he was in the combine this year.
Yeah, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not like totally out on Ollie Gordon. I'm happy to take him in the late 2nd still.
This is great for us.
Yeah, because I'm still an Ollie Gordon truther at my heart. It's just I'm not going to rank him as my RB2 in this class when Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins looked so good.
Yeah, speaking of Quinshon Judkins, that's one of our winners as well from the NFL Combine. And I had a lot of questions about Judkins' top-level speed specifically after he got caught from behind in that national championship game on that long gainer where he ends up getting tracked down by the Notre Dame defenders. Looked like he was going to break away for 6. Didn't. And so earlier this week, I was talking to CBS's Mike Renard on the Fantasy Pros NFL Draft Show who actually got the chance to talk to Judkins in Indy, asked him about it. And Judkins told him like, hey, yeah, I kind of got like made fun of by my team a little bit for that one. And was just kind of gassed after a long wheel route the play before. So I was kind of like worried about that, honestly, boys. I was like, does he not have the top level speed that I maybe thought he did? And then Judkins comes out. He drops a 9.89 relative athletic score, including a 4.48 40-yard dash. And I'm going to have to revisit some tape now because I feel like he's right back in the mix for my RB4, RB5, kind of with him and Caleb Johnson kind of fighting over that spot there. So I don't think, though, after proving that he really is the freak athlete we saw come in, overthrow Zach Evans in his freshman year down in Ole Miss there, that he really is that guy. And I don't think he's going to make it out of the first half of the third round now. So I'm back in on Judkins a little bit here. I think this helped clean up, add another piece of this puzzle here, Eric.
Yeah, it did, right? You love to see the speed there. You love to see him really pop on the relative athletic score scale. Thanks to our guy at MathBomb on those Twitter streets doing a ton of work over the combine to put those together, right? And look, this is the guy that has a high pedigree. He's shown to not only produce at a high level, but separate himself and make himself stand out in very crowded backfields throughout his college career. And now we're seeing him, relative to a very talented running back class, be able to separate himself on the athletic side, right? So definitely did a lot to improve his position. It's kind of hard for me to call anybody at the running back position a winner because it's almost the opposite side of the quarterback class. Like, there are so many of them in that tier 2 to tier 3 that, all have a ton to offer, right? So I don't know if he made a material impact on his draft stock necessarily, but he, like we talked about heading into the combine, like he confirmed a lot of the good things that we saw on his tape. And he made us feel better about some of the question marks that we had. And that's exactly what they're trying to do at the combine.
I feel like, I feel like maybe I overreacted to something that was kind of in the national spotlight there and try to discredit some of Judkins here. So I'm glad he could kind of put some of that narrative behind him. Another running back, I think, who upped his stock here at the NFL Combine, and definitely not a big name at all, and actually a guy I think who was potentially at risk of going undrafted, despite being one of the cover athletes of the NCAA 2025 video game, Donovan Edwards, who was, of course, usurped this season by former linebacker converted to running back Khalil Mullins in that Michigan Wolverines backfield. I was really impressed with Donovan Edwards, man. I mean, this is a guy, I think we saw it back in the day in those big Ohio State games, in those big college football playoff games in previous seasons that had a little bit of burst. And I think we saw that again on Saturday, posted a 9.6 relative athletic score, 4.4 second, 4.44, I should say, 40-yard dash, 1.1 10-yard split. That's tied for the second best among the running back position. Also fourth in the vertical, first in the bench press. Overall, I think his explosiveness and pass catching ability will get him on the board in day 3, and likely someone you can still get for almost free, Steve, in Dynasty Superflex rookie drafts. Maybe if you have a 5th round, you're taking him, but if not, Donovan Edwards is someone that's going to continue to be on my radar after having a nice little performance after a pretty down final season for the Wolverines.
Yeah, this is a guy who screams to me Dallas Cowboy, right? Like, put him behind that line and let him run kind of wild. I think this is a guy who could have a very, very, very productive NFL career. When you have a huge regime change like Michigan did,
sure,
some guys suffer worse than others. This could have been a case of he just didn't pick up the playbook very well, right? Like, I don't think he was a bad running back by any means. Like, when I saw him on TV, I'm like, this guy's a good running back. He knows how to make his moves. He knows how to explode. He's got the natural instinct on the field. It may well have been like the system just was not for him, right? And that happens from time to time. I think if he's a day 3 pick and he goes to the right situation, you could reasonably spend a late third, early 4th round pick on him. And at that point, it's a dart throw anyway. You don't know. It's all a crapshoot at that point. So why not take the guy who has a higher upside? And that's usually what I do with those picks is I'm just like, hey, listen, who could be like the sneaky RB1, it could be Donovan Edwards. And I thought he did a really good job. Again, if he came out last year, if he was able to come out last year, and he did, we'd be talking about him as potentially the RB1 in this class, right? But because he didn't, and he had a down year, like, we're ready to write him off as a nothing. And I don't think that's really the case with him. I think his skill set is pretty substantial, and his relative athletic score reflects that, right? Like, they're saying not only is he a good athlete, he's an elite top level athlete.
Absolutely. Staying at the running back position here, another guy very highly touted early in his career. A lot of people thought he could potentially be the running back one of this class, Raheim Rocket Sanders, down there in South Carolina. It was a great performance from him at the combine as well. Goes out, runs a 4.47, 9.82 relative athletic score. Steve, you think Raheim Rocket Sanders is a winner coming out of South Carolina this weekend?
I did, and I love Raheim Sanders. I have been a fan of his since the Arkansas days, right? Like years and years and years ago. And injuries happen. You miss the season, whatever. Like, it takes time. A lot of people, I'm going to speak personally on this one for a second, because I don't know if either of you played like competitive sports or not, or have suffered a season-ending injury. Have either of you ever, like, anyone who hasn't suffered one, it takes a long time to come back from that.
Sure.
Trying to find your way back into the game. Like, I was a baseball player. I missed a whole season with a knee injury. And when I came back, I wasn't the same guy for a year. I was slower. I was rehabbing. I was trying to get a feel for the game. My batting average, which had always been something I took pride in, took a hit. I mean, it's a long road to recovery just to get the feel of the game back when you miss that much time. And at the level that he was trying to play, it does take time. But now you looked at him, he came out into this combine. He's a big running back, like just a big dude, right? And he's
see it on the
so
banner down
fast.
there. Big dude.
Yeah, that's a big dude running a 4.47.
6'2",
That's really
225, yeah.
Yeah, that's really fast. That's a big, fast man. And I think we've written him off because it's like, oh, well, why didn't he do better at South Carolina? It's like, because he was coming off of an injury, and now he had transferred schools and learned a new playbook and a new coaching staff and a blah, 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 right? Like, there's a lot that goes into that sometimes you need to find that comfort. Again, like with Donovan Edwards, with a new coaching staff, when major changes happen to you as an athlete, it's so hard sometimes to get your bearings back. And coming off of an injury and trying to work your way back into it, into all these other unknowns, that can affect your performance. And it's not like he was bad. And he also has like receiving chops on top of it. So now he's explosive, he's fast, he's skilled. There's nothing not to like about Raheim Sanders. And I am much more in than I already was.
Eric, if you had to take a dart throw right now, not knowing the landing spots for these running backs, who are you taking? Would you rather take someone like Donovan Edwards? Would you rather take someone like Raheim Rocket Sanders, who, you know, going back to that 2022 season before the injury, had over 1,400 rushing yards, had double-digit touchdowns, and still added almost 300 yards through the air as well for that Arky team down there?
Of the two, I thought you were going to give me the slam dunk and let me pick amongst the four, where I could just say Quinshon, Judkins, and keep it moving. Of the two, so I'm sure I'm sounding like a broken record to the IBT faithful out there. Generally speaking, with rookie running backs, I'm looking for their path to playing time, and usually that is tied to their ability as a pass blocker. Fortunately, neither of these guys are particularly skilled in that regard. Donovan Edwards looks to be a little bit better there. They use him a little bit more in receiving work, which just gives him more exposure.
Come on to the dark side,
blocking.
baby.
So I'll lean that way. But I mean, to Steve's point, like, I think both these guys are a bit more in that dart throw territory, which is what third and fourth round rookie picks are for. That is why you have them, right? Like, go speculate. So I don't think either of them would be a bad way to spend a late round pick, but you know, the path to playing time means something, right? It's how a guy gets a shot when he otherwise wouldn't, and that, you know, that can play out in a few different ways in your dynasty portfolio.
Moving the wide receiver position up the top of our winner board, how could you not, man? It's Matthew Golden, Texas wide receiver, coming through with the 42-1 cash for us. Eric, this is a guy we've talked about on the program. I actually talked to him about him as one of my winners from the college football playoffs, because unlike Isaiah Bond, who felt like he got injured throughout the year, never really progressed and kind of regressed down the stretch for Texas, Matthew Golden was someone, when he was catching a crosser for Texas, he was lethal in the open space. I thought he potentially had some 4.3 speed in him. 4.29 out there. I mean, just absolutely explosive performance from him. We don't have the full relative athletic score picture, didn't test in everything, but a great 10-yard split, a lethal 40-yard dash as well. So your thoughts on Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden? Where does he kind of cement himself in your Dynasty rookie rankings? Where do you think he ends up in the NFL draft? Because he's someone I already had projected to go at the end of the first round of the NFL draft. And now I think he's kind of cemented himself in that conversation.
Yeah, that's definitively it, right? And like we like to point at at the 40-yard dash time, the 4.29, leading all receivers amidst a class of some guys that allegedly could really burn, right? So definitely get some attention there. But the funny thing is, like, he doesn't really profile as your typical speedster, right? He's got a bit more size to him. He's got a little bit more yard after the catch ability.
Yeah,
honestly, this is going to feel like a lazy comp and maybe not what fantasy and dynasty managers want to hear. There's a lot of Adonai Mitchell to his game, right? Who I don't think we have a full picture on who he can be at the NFL level. The reason why I put Matthew Golden as my biggest winner is really after the first 3 wide receivers and according to some circles, 2 wide receivers, it was an open conversation for who that next guy off the board was going to be and who was really going to vault themselves into that pick, 20 to 28 range. And I think definitively Matthew Golden has himself in that conversation. Now we need to adjust ourselves to the reality that the University of Texas is churning out some premier receiver talent. So we have to contextualize their productivity on the field in that sense, right? Like, he is out there with guys that are going to be highly coveted draft prospects, the guys that are very, very capable. So, if he was in a position where he was the only guy out there, I think we'd be looking at some of the prolific numbers that might actually have him even further up boards. But like we talked about before, in the combine, all you can really do is confirm the skill set that you saw on tape. And he did that easily. And now I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 3rd or 4th receiver off the board in the NFL draft this year.
Yeah, I'm absolutely there with you. 5'11", 191. So he's got a little bit more compared to some of these other smaller wide receivers. And kind of staying here in Texas, I guess we should talk about the guy who got a lot of people's money this past week to run the fastest 40, including yours, Steve. Isaiah Bond out of Texas. I said it. This is, I don't want to take another victory lap. I already kind of took one earlier, if not 2, but comes out, says he can run a 4.2, potentially a 4.19, and goes out and drops a 4.41, not even relatively close, still fast by, all means, right? I mean, this guy can fly compared to the normal human being, but just not a great overall combine when that was really all he did there.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm really down on Isaiah Bond is not necessarily like a 4.41. That's a great 40-yard dash time, right? Like you're sitting there going, you're a burner. You can run fast. Great. The problem is when you're out there promising 4.2s or 4.1s and you deliver a 4.4, that's awfully Josh Rosen of you. That's a very Josh Rosen kind of thing to do. You come out and you're like, I'm going to make every team regret letting me fall to 10, and then you suck. You can't do that, right? Because that sits in NFL GM's mouths and it tastes bad. It doesn't pass the sniff test. Isaiah Bond, for all intents and purposes, had a good combine. His mouth made it a bad combine, and now you have to wonder, does this guy kind of buy his own hype a little bit too much? And that hurts. While I do have Isaiah Bond as a loser, I do want to preface all of this by saying that the main winner, I almost put this as a winner from the combine, is Tet McMillan, because nobody, not one person at this combine challenged him as the number 1 receiver in this draft, right?
No one was going to,
No one was going to, but someone could have made a little noise. No one did. And now he is secured and locked as the wide receiver 1 of this class. Isaiah Bond, his mouth made him a loser at this draft because you can't run 0.2 of a second slower than you're saying you're going to run
Sure.
and have anybody like it gives pause to GMs, right? I don't think this has anything to do with his talent. It just gives pause to like everything matters. Everything you do in this process matters. And if you're running your mouth, and I'm all for players doing it, I like a good, confident dude, but you got to back it up. You got to back it up, or else now we're starting to look as you did fade down the stretch. Where'd you go? And now you didn't run your 40 time the way you said you were going to run your 40 time. And then you kind of backed out of some of the drills, and then it wasn't quite what we were expecting. So now you have questions, right? You've opened yourself up to question marks, and NFL GMs don't like question marks. So that's why I think he's a loser in this.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you, man. And like at this point, I was already there, but give me both the Iowa State wide receivers over these guys. I was way higher on A.O. Manor than consensus too. Give me A.O. Manor over Isaiah Bond. Like Matthew Golden to me, he was already in my wide receiver 3-4 conversation over guys like Luther Burden, which I think was a little bit of a hot take, but I still feel confident in that. So yeah, I just think Isaiah Bond, Jalen Royals, give me Jalen Royals over this guy. Give me Jack Besh over this guy. Like, I just think Isaiah Bond falls maybe not all the way out of day 2, but down the day 2 ladder for sure. Another loser for me is a guy Eric was actually extremely high on coming into the combine as far as potentially running a fast 40. And I had a couple of shekels on him. And, well, boys, Tez Johnson, to me, even before we get to the 40, like this guy, he broke the cardinal rule. He weighed in under 160 pounds at the NFL Combine. Like, this scares me because, like, you're supposed to be bulking, right? Like, this is, you want to weigh in heavier than 160. And not only that, what was the under 160, folks? He was the lightest wide receiver to ever weigh in at the NFL Combine at 154 pounds. That is the 0.6 percentile. I know smaller wide receivers in the NFL works nowadays, but Tank Dell, Devonta Smith, Xavier Worthy, all bulked up to at least 165 pounds for the combine. Tez also ran only a 4.51, and that's good for a 7.6 NFL RAS score, man. Like, I just don't think that's going to cut it in the league at his size. Like, you need to be an elite athlete. You need to be an Xavier Worthy, Devonta Smith type guy, and I just don't think Tez Johnson is that guy. I think based on what we saw from an Indy, the lack of production from Troy Franklin last year, coming out of the same program, I think that Eric is very much a late day 3 pick now.
Heading towards like a special teams assignment in terms of his role in the NFL, right? And I'm glad that you clarified my my hype for Tez Johnson, because it was exclusively targeted towards his ability to run very fast in a straight line, which he didn't even pass muster there, right?
No.
And you mentioned some of the smaller receivers that we think about, how they all got in over 165. Many of them got in well over 165. Tank Dell was at 165.
Yep.
Devonta Smith 170. Worthy at 172. Tyler Lockett at 182. Right? Like, look, to say that there's room for a more slight of frame receiver in the NFL level is fair, but 154 pounds is nothing, right?
Yep.
And these are all guys, even the ones that are 15, 20 pounds heavier than him, have no shortage of injury history. Like, that is the concern, what you're exposing your body to. So, if nothing else, like, for him not to just be completely bulking so that he falls on the right side of the scale, like it shows a short-sightedness. It shows a lack of awareness that nobody in terms of NFL front offices or coaching staffs is coveting, right? So he did considerable damage just by, not understanding the assignment. And then if you're going to be small, you gotta be
fast.
He didn't even check that box. Dude. So it was a bad weekend for Tez Johnson.
I mean, Steve, is he outside the top 50 in a rookie super flex? Like, are you drafting him in the first 4 rounds of a rookie super flex draft right now?
No, and I don't even think he's going to be drafted in the NFL draft, to be honest with you at this point. Like, there's not one redeemable quality about what he brought to the table this combine. He's too small. He's too slow. He's not I mean, being light is one thing, but he's like what, 5'8"?
I think he'll get drafted, right? But
Why? By who? Who wants this profile? He's
yeah,
5'8", which is my height. He's 160. He's 153 pounds, which is lighter than me. Like it's, and then he ran a 4.51. That's not elite speed.
Yeah.
That's like he's
Yeah.
like just a regular. Like
Yeah.
Jag would be too generous, I think, of a term
sure.
for what Tez Johnson would bring to your team. I'd rather use it on a Donovan Edwards or a Raheim Sanders or something like that. And I think teams
Yeah.
will. I think the lack of awareness, again, you knew there's a number to hit. I'm sure his agent knew it. I'm sure his coaches knew it, that they were like,
Yeah.
get to 160. You have to get to 160. And he didn't. All this dude had to do was eat cheeseburgers.
Creatine, brother. Like creatine's
Eat
out there.
cheeseburgers, do anything,
Right?
because if you're 160 pounds, you're still light. It doesn't matter how you get there. That's not like what's going to put you over the top of being chubby. Like, and if you're going to run a 4.51 anyway, who the fuck cares how you get there? Just get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you didn't. And
tough
I
luck.
wouldn't draft you. I wouldn't draft you. I'd be like, you had one friggin' job. You couldn't do it. So, like, what the fuck am I going to waste my time on you for?
Yeah. Tough scene. Tez. We're rooting for you, Bob. I think you're gonna get drafted, but I think it's be late day three. But
Yeah, he's got special teamer written all over him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Which there's a role for, right? Like he can still make this dream come true, but he
Maybe he's
had an opportunity and he just
he
completely
could be the next Matthew Slater.
fumbled
Who
the bag.
knows?
Yeah. There you go. Speaking of
Jesus Christ, we need a
some
picture for this guy.
All right, rounding us out here, Eric. You're saying one of the winners of the combine is the elite tight ends who didn't even perform. Colston Loveland, the Tyler Warrens of the world. We really only had Terrence Ferguson, who was kind of the only guy out of Oregon who kind of popped the 9.8 one RAS. Fast 40 as well. So just overall pretty decent showing from Ferguson. But besides that, nobody in this tight end class stood out here at the combine.
Yeah, and that's really the point, right? And I'm coming at my winners and losers from this interesting angle because I've been out here banging the drum for my guy Fannin, and Harold Fannin absolutely.
So is Steve.
Absolutely just shit the bed, right?
Yep,
A 6.23 relative athletic score, which, look, tight ends generally can overcome, right? Like they're not known for being the most athletic specimens, but in the case of a guy like Fannin, who I thought, if he really showed up and showed out, could put himself in the conversation to be the first tight end off the board, although that was a hot take. For him to not get anywhere near that, it completely tanks the market, right? You mentioned Terrence Ferguson had a good day athletically. He's not in the same conversation in terms of the tiers at the top of this year's class, right? So like we'll see what Arroyo can do coming up. Gunnar Helm was a name that could have steamed himself up. Really the reason why I say elite tight ends is these two players, Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland. They are now a definitive tier onto themselves, and that's where you start to get bidding wars, right?
Yeah.
Maybe no one goes, reaches to get the first one off the board, but once the first one's off the board, someone's moving up to get the second one if they're in that tight end market, right? Whereas if there were, 3 or 4 more guys that you can kind of squint your eyes and say, you can get comparable production, maybe the market doesn't blow up quite as much. So I think by doing nothing at all, these two guys really improved their standing, where they can potentially get drafted, the size of their rookie contracts, et cetera.
So a few thoughts on this. One, I wanted to put Gunnar Helm as a potential loser, but then it comes out the story that after he runs the 40, he sprained his ankle, and like the picture of his ankle comes out, and he gutted it through the rest of the workout. So like it was hard to that's kind of badass, honestly, in a way. Like I think a lot of coaches will appreciate that. So it's hard to write him off too much. But yeah, not a great showing from Gunnar Helm. And are you feeling nervous about your potential bet that we have coming up that you're going to potentially owe me a case of Busch lattes for with Tyler Warren going in the top 20?
No, because the bet was not Tyler Warren going in the top 20. It was him.
It was
going
where
in
the
top
books.
15,
No, it was where the
words.
book said it. It was where the book said it at opening
No,
line.
you said 15 to 18, and I'll
I
still
thought
take
it
the
was
under
7.
on
I thought
18.
the over under was 17.5 on
We
your
were
guys'
wait.
bet.
I said 15, and then you challenged me on the bet. I said, give me 20, maybe give me, and then I said, actually, let's wait for what the book said it at. And so we're gonna still wait. But you're getting nervous. I see you sweating
No,
over there.
we're not going to wait for where the book said it at, because you said 15 to 18, and I said I think he goes later than that. We can have the crack video team here at IBT go cut down the clip if we want exactly.
All
See
right.
that.
We have it
I
on our
still feel
YouTube. We
fine
clipped it
about
out,
that
brother.
wager.
It's out there. All right. I'm gonna start sending you that every day just to get into the back of your mind. I'm ready, baby. I'm ready. All right, let's go ahead. We're gonna round out the show, and we're gonna talk about Eric's last loser, the Tennessee Titans. Because the 101 trade market kind of shrinking up a little bit potentially for them. We are hearing that teams that missed out on these veteran quarterbacks, potentially maybe like the New York Giants, maybe the Las Vegas Raiders potentially might be interested in moving up, but that might feel like just some leaked Tennessee information trying to get out there. So Eric, don't want to put words in your mouth, man. So what do you think here, the Tennessee Titans being one of the big losers of the draft? And we also, of course, had Abdul Carter, who didn't test well medically.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? You mentioned, we are firmly into lying season, and so I think a lot of those rumors that you're hearing are being matriculated out there by Tennessee faithful, and the reality is, right, like, I'm pretty staunch that, like, unless you are definitively certain that you have a franchise-changing quarterback at the 101, you should almost always trade that pick. Your return for trading out of there is going to be exponentially greater than anything a single player can get you, except for that one exception. And now, while Cam Ward is clearly the best quarterback in this year's class, I don't know if it's consensus that he is, in that franchise-changing conversation yet. And then there's really nobody else. There's just not an active market of guys that teams are going to want to spend the requisite amount to get up to the 101. So, reporting out there is that Tennessee is actively listening to offers for the 101, as they should. But unless you have, 2-3 guys, 4-5 guys, and several of them are quarterbacks to really get that market excited, it's hard to get that type of franchise changing haul in return for that pick. So I feel like the top end of this year's class, specifically at the quarterback market, really cooled off over the course of the combine. There's chatter that Shedeur Sanders might not go in the first round overall. He might fall into the late 20s even, right? So, like, it feels like their opportunity to really, accumulate some draft capital and change their fortunes is probably fallen by the wayside for this year.
Steve, we've touched on this in the past. Who do you think will be the first round pick, and how would you play this in the betting markets currently? Cam Ward minus 250. So you'd obviously have to lay some juice, maybe parlay that with something to get that up. Abdul Carter plus 210, Travis Hunter 15-1, Shedeur Sanders now up to 19-1, and moving to that fifth favorite spot, Jackson Dart 75-1. So how would you play this first round pick from a betting perspective?
Yeah, I think the Titans are going to trade this pick. So if they do, no one is moving up to draft anything but a quarterback.
After everything Eric just said, you think they're trading the pick still? You think someone's going to be lucrative?
I still think they're trading the pick. I think their return is going to be significantly lower than it would be if there was an elite quarterback at the top of this year's class.
I am in Eric's camp of I am always team trade the first overall pick. You just get so much more. Now, I will say this. If you're the Titans, right? Trade the first overall pick this year. Move back. Don't draft a quarterback. Roll with Will Levis. Be the worst team in the league again. Be the worst team in the league again.
Go get
Arch Manning, right? Yeah. Like, that's what you do. Or you trade back again and you get more and more first round picks, and then you just have a team full of studs. The Tennessee Titans are not a quarterback away from being a good team. They are a bad team pretty much across the board. So they have a lot of holes to fill. I don't think they're going to use the first overall pick on Cam Ward. It just doesn't sound like they like him as a prospect that much. So I would bet Cam Ward is the first overall pick. if someone holds a gun to Tennessee's head and says draft somebody now,
I think it's Abdul.
I think it's Travis Hunter.
I think so. 15-1. Steve likes the long shot of potentially Travis Hunter going first overall. I'm finishing up my mock draft right now, 2.0 here. That's going to be out on fantasypros.com next week. Waiting to the free agency dominoes falls here to see what maybe if Tennessee does anything. But I think Abdul Carter plus 210 right now out at FanDuel. I potentially wouldn't mind grabbing that. Eric, do you have a different mindset if you're speculating for a first overall pick? Mine's 250 for Ward, plus 210 for Carter, 15-1 there for a guy Trav Hunter, or the long shot Shedeur Sanders, 19-1, which is crazy because he was minus money earlier just this very year to go first overall.
Yeah, I mean, look, the correct answer is always the quarterback. So I would lean towards it being Cam Ward because like I said, I still think Tennessee trades out of this spot, right? Just they don't get the return that that we've seen from first overall picks or even second or third overall picks in years past, right? So I do think it's Cam Ward. I don't really love the price. If they stick, I don't have faith in them understanding what to do internally with Travis Hunter. So they would probably go to the trusty number 11 there, Abdul Carter. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of buzz around this first overall pick, and I think the markets aren't nearly as representative of that as they should be, right? Like they're priced like those clear favorites.
Yeah, it's a good. I like it. It's a good draft, but
it's a good draft if you're a running back. Like I honestly, I still think like either an offensive lineman or Tet McMillan should be the 101 personally.
Easy, chill out. All right, we're off draft talk after that whole I mean, come on, chill out. Come on, brother.
Listen,
we got Abdul Carter in this draft, brother. He's gonna shake.
He needs ankle surgery. He's already needs surgery on his ankle. Like this is.
Yeah.
I'm not burning a first overall pick on a guy.
Not everybody follows the New York Giants, the pillar of front office effectiveness. Not everybody follows their color coding schema, so this isn't going to be a direct comp. There are a lot of front offices that see a guy with an injury like Abdul Carter's and immediately color him red, and he is off the draft board, right? Like injury scares the shit out of these people. It's why the combine exists. The combine exists so that all of these players can get into the same place and get medical examinations from a constant team of medical professionals.
And the fact that this injury did not come out until the combine, and then all of a sudden it comes out, that is big time red flag. That's not good. That means it was discovered on site, essentially. Yeah. And that can kill your draft stock. Kill it.
I still think it'll be all right. I think it'll be all right. I mean,
probably right. But
I'm not saying he's not gonna be good. I'm saying
I know, but I just they came out afterwards, the day after, kind of re-clarified like he's not gonna need surgery for this. Like we're gonna be all right. We're gonna be ready to go for the season.
They re-clarified before the combine that he wasn't injured, and that proved to be a lie.
Wow.
Yeah, right. Like,
hey, chestnut checkers out here, brother.
What is the number one objective of an NFL GM?
Get value, win a Super Bowl.
You got to be right.
Don't get fired.
Yeah.
Don't get fired. Your number one job is to keep the job. And by spending the first overall pick on a guy that has a legitimate injury concern is a great way to lose your job. I still think Abdul Carter is one of, if not the most talented player in this draft. I think mathematically he'll probably be a very effective NFL player. But if you're going to absorb that risk, you're applying that same risk to your job security. Sure. And GMs don't want to lose these jobs.
Correct. Very, 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 very true. So Tennessee potentially trade now is what the boys are thinking here of the 101. Eric, Steve, been a blessing being with you here tonight, man. Appreciate all the commentary on both the NFL as a whole and the NFL Combine, more specifically in this latter half of the show. Kyle, thank you for your help in the back end as well. That's going to do it for us tonight on the In Between Fantasy Football podcast. Make sure you check out the rest of our shows here on the YouTube channel. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Also, please check out inbetweenmedia.com and consider coming to draft that out this summer. If you want to hang out with us, 200 of our closest friends, bombing some beers, drafting some teams this August. Looking forward to that. For Kyle Scott and Steve Lawson, as well as Eric Romoff, I'm Seth Woolcock. Keep in between until next time, folks. Thank